Climate change is an existential threat to humanity. Year after year, we are seeing an increase in both the severity and number of extreme weather events. Droughts, wildfires, famine, and flooding are on the rise. Migration is surging, generating more climate refugees every year. But we live on a planet that is 71% water, and the largest chunk of fresh water exists as ice in Antarctica, a continent directly affected by climate change. This is Unveiled, and today we're answering the extraordinary question, what would happen if Antarctica melted? Do you need the big questions answered? Are you constantly curious? Then why not subscribe to Unveiled for more clips like this one and ring the bell for more thought-provoking content. Our climate is in a sustained period of global warming. While it undergoes cyclical variations, cooling and warming, current warming is taking place at an unprecedented rate. There's a strong scientific consensus that this is due to human activities. In a normal global system, sunlight is reflected off the Earth's surface, escaping back into space. But when carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases are released into the atmosphere, they act like a blanket over the Earth, absorbing sunlight and reflecting back solar radiation. Greenhouse gases can then stay in the atmosphere for decades or centuries. As they accumulate, the blanket gets thicker, preventing more and more heat from escaping. The burning of fossil fuels releases billions of metric tons of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere every year, and those particles have led to incredible changes over a relatively short period of time. Scientists began keeping accurate records of global temperature around 1880. In the century that followed, temperatures rose less than 1/10 of a degree Celsius every decade. That rise has doubled in the last 40 years, though. We are seeing the results in real time. The top 5 hottest years ever recorded, for example, are all post-2015. That rise has had a direct impact on global ice, especially in polar regions, the Arctic in the north and the Antarctic in the south. The Antarctic ice sheet is tremendous. At almost 5.4 million square miles, it's about the same size as the continental United States and Mexico combined. Together, the Antarctic ice sheet and the Greenland ice sheet in the Arctic account for 99% of the world's land ice and 68% of freshwater on the planet. That ice is at risk, though. According to the Ocean Conservancy, 95% of the oldest, thickest Arctic ice has melted away since 1985. That begs the question, how much total ice has Antarctica already lost as well? NASA has the answers. In 1997, the box office was dominated by Titanic, a film about an iceberg destroying the exemplar of human invention. In an example of cruel irony, however, human-induced climate change has melted over 12 trillion tons from Antarctica's ice shelves since then, according to a 2022 study. The ice sheets in Antarctica lose 150 billion tons of ice mass every year. Again, we can witness that loss in real time. Ice or glacier calving is when giant chunks of ice break off from the polar sheets. Calvings are booming. Dramatic losses of ice shelves, birthing icebergs destined to die slow, melting deaths. In the last 25 years, the Antarctic sheets have lost around 23,000 square miles of ice to calving. That's an area larger than the nation of Taiwan. The amount of ice that Greenland and Antarctica have lost since around the 1990s accounts for over 1/3, or approximately 0.7 inches, of sea level rise. In April 2023, scientists published a terrifying new paper in Nature. After analyzing the beds of former ice streams, they discovered the rate at which ice retreated at the end of the last ice age, from 180 to 2,000 feet per day. Somewhat thankfully, neither polar ice cap is melting at that rate right now, though the current rates do appear to be accelerating. The Eurasian ice sheet is certainly melting rapidly, and Antarctica is melting as fast as 160 feet per day, only just off the last ice age levels. That retreat acts like a runaway train, gaining momentum all the time. And as that momentum continues, it reveals more and more surface area to the warming ocean, once again accelerating the melt. Some describe this as a tipping point, and one that we're very, very close to passing. Increasing temperatures put the pedal to the metal when it comes to the melt rate. If current projections of temperature increases hold, that rate could eventually reach a pace that could cause a rapid collapse of Antarctica's glaciers. The lead author of the 2023 study, Christine Batchelor, addressed this worrisome point directly. If temperatures continue to rise, she says, then we might have the ice being melted and thinned from above as well as from below. According to Batchelor, if the ice sheet did melt at 2,000 feet for a year, we probably wouldn't have any ice left. As another glaciologist, Eric Rigneau, put it, this is not a model. This is a real observation, and it is, frankly, scary. The trouble with climate change is that so many of its knock-on effects are cumulative. Each effect builds upon the other, working together to make things much worse for life on Earth. Another 2023 study, again published in Nature, and this time from a team of Australian researchers, focused on the effects of ice melt on the deep ocean. It was found that an increase in ocean volume could lead to a 40% slowdown of deep ocean currents by 2050. This, the researchers say, could lead to centuries of altered climate. Slower ocean currents would cause a cascade of negative impacts, from rising sea levels, worsening weather, and the starvation of ocean life. One of the co-authors, Matt England, of the Climate Change Research Centre at the University of New South Wales, discussed the study in an interview with The Guardian. At our current trajectory, the entire deep ocean current could rapidly collapse. In the past, changes of these currents took centuries, not decades, to unfold. England says that we are talking about the possible long-term extinction of an iconic water mass. That extinction could spread to oceanic life. When animals and plants die in the ocean, they sink to the ocean floor and circulate across the world in deep ocean currents. Upswells return the nutrients they provide to phytoplankton, the keystone of the entire food chain. It would take a cooling climate and centuries of waiting to resuscitate the ocean's food supply if the deep ocean current collapses. Without that volume of phytoplankton, the oceans will also see diminished capacity to absorb and sequester CO2, further accelerating global warming. Again, all of these problems are linked. So what happens if these cascading events ever do lead to the complete melting of all of Antarctica's ice? If Antarctica melts completely, we are looking at a sea level rise of 16 meters, or approximately 200 feet. Since Antarctica is melting at a slower rate than Greenland, if Antarctica melts, it means Greenland will have done so as well. That's 70 meters, or 230 feet of total sea level rise. In that scenario, the map of the world would be drastically different. Every single coastal city on Earth, every single one, would be underwater. Virtually all of the state of Florida would be taken by the ocean. Rivers would turn into massive inland seas. The UK and Ireland would turn into small archipelagos. China would be utterly decimated, with all of its major population centers drowned in the Pacific. Australia would look something like a donut, with a giant inland sea in the middle. But there is some good news. Current models do not project the total destruction of Antarctica's ice happening anytime soon. Science magazine published a large and thorough assessment of climate tipping points in 2022. They focused on the most vulnerable section of Antarctica, its western ice sheet. The study concluded that the tipping point for the West Antarctic ice sheet is likely around 1.5 Celsius of global warming, a target we are likely to hit by the 2030s. When the tipping point is reached, this particular sheet is on the fast track for collapse. But we would still have some time to turn things around. Once the tipping point is reached, the range of total collapse is estimated to be anywhere between 500 and 13,000 years, and most likely somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 years total. Fortunately, after decades of warnings, some real progress has been made in combating climate change. In August 2022, the Biden administration passed the Inflation Reduction Act. It includes the largest investment in climate resilience in American history, devoting hundreds of billions of dollars to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. A mixture of federal investment in electric vehicles and tax credits for green energy projects have already had an impact. Recent analyses are now increasing projections of greenhouse gas reductions by anywhere between 5 and 9% on top of initial projections. According to the former economic advisor for Barack Obama, Steve Ratner, we are already seeing better than predicted effects from the Inflation Reduction Act. As of May 2023, more than 300 post-IRA green power generation projects had been announced, more than doubling the number of projects in the same period year over year. The US, Ratner says, is on the cusp of a green revolution. Renewable energy is projected to grow by a factor of 10 by 2050. So there is a real possibility that the US could meet its Paris Climate Agreement emission goals by the same year. If further action is taken, the chances are good. Nevertheless, climate change is a daisy chain of disaster. Global warming causes one unwanted effect that leads to another, that leads to another. Knock-on problems feed into the next, and the next, working in tandem to eventually affect every corner of the planet. Ultimately, if Antarctica ever did fully melt away, then it wouldn't be an isolated incident. It would be proof of just how much wider trouble we were in. The time hasn't passed to stem the time and turn things around, but the clock is ticking. What do you think? Is there anything we missed? Let us know in the comments. Check out these other clips from Unveiled, and make sure you subscribe and ring the bell for our latest content.